member of the public or even a member who is an elected official.
Dasha,
you are screened.
I'm so sorry. I just can't. We're not able to make out exactly what you're saying. It is a very chaotic scene where you are. The communications are difficult. We're going to try to reestablish a better line of communication with Dasha Burns. I want to go back to Peter Alexander. Peter, any word from the White House?
Jose, no new information from the White House right now, but I do want to share some information we are receiving from the Democratic governor of the state of Pennsylvania, where this incident, this shooting, appears to have taken place only a short time ago. Governor Josh Shapiro writes, "Violence targeted at any political party or political leader is absolutely unacceptable." He says it has no place in Pennsylvania or the United States. He says he has been briefed on the situation by Pennsylvania State Police. He says he's been briefed on the situation, says that Pennsylvania State Police are on the scene in Butler County where this took place and are working with our federal and local partners. Again, those are the words of Governor Josh Shapiro, the Democratic governor of the state of Pennsylvania. So that's just the latest information we're getting from there. Again, we are reaching out to the staff at the White House right now. President Biden, as we noted earlier, is traveling. He is in Delaware right now. The reporters, the pool that travels with him, we are told by reporters they are being kept inside the vans that they normally travel in, a safe distance away from his home. But that is the latest in terms of the information that we have, Jose.
Peter Alexander, thank you so very much. As we continue our coverage, Lester Holt continues with our breaking news.
Jose, thank you very much as we continue to cover the events here. I want to go to Dasha Burns. Dasha was in the crowd covering this event. I think we've reestablished your signal. Dasha, do you hear us okay?
Yeah, Lester, I'm on a better line, I think. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Lester, I will tell you that what transpired is the former president was just starting his rally. He was only a few minutes into his speech. He was talking about immigration under President Biden. I and our team were up on the press risers as he first started speaking. We were just making our way off of those risers. We were heading to the ground level where all of the attendees were on the grass in the field at this venue when we heard what initially I thought might have been fireworks. The Trump rallies often involve pyrotechnics. Sometimes there is smoke for effect. So initially there was confusion, shock, surprise for myself being there personally, but also as I looked around to the crowd and everyone around us. My producer, Bianca, and I then realized that it might be something more serious as we heard those consecutive pop, pop, pops that you could hear on the video. We took cover behind some stage equipment. We looked around to make sure that our colleagues were in a safe position as we saw the entire audience, all of the attendees, get down on the ground. You can, of course, see in that video the former president also getting down, his Secret Service covering him. So from confusion to sudden fear. Then when the former president, you see him in that video rising up, he holds his hand up in the air. The audience started to cheer. There were some chants of USA, USA. Still a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion. Attendees started to evacuate. Eventually, the reason I'm on the phone with you, we were evacuated as well. So, Lester, at this point, I will tell you that venue is empty aside from law enforcement, Secret Service. Trump staff are gone, attendees are gone, the press is gone. My team and I are now in a safe location. The security at these events, one of the reasons, Lester, this was so confusing and surprising and shocking for us all. Of course, this is what everyone fears when it comes to the heated political environment that we are in. We don't know what exactly happened, what transpired, but people fear political violence. So this was scary for all of us who were there. But every rally that I have ever been to, Lester, because of that concern, is thoroughly protected. There are security mags, whether you're a member of the press, whether you're a member of the public, even elected officials are screened. Every item that you are carrying is looked at by a member of security. there is a pretty strict protocol about what you can and cannot bring in, which is why there was so much confusion when this first started, because there are so many precautions taken to prevent any sort of violence, any sort of unsafe situation. And we are now safe with this moment into this rally, Jose.
Dasha, let me ask you, you and others, I think, have described multiple shots fired. First of all, do we know anyone in the crowd, anyone who was there? Has anyone been hit? And also, what do we know about the shooter?
We don't know, as far as from my vantage point, where exactly those shots came from. It's a really large venue, Lester, and it was hard to tell exactly where the shots were coming from. I thought I saw some smoke on the right-hand side of the stage, but again, the Trump rallies often have those sorts of special effects, so it wasn't clear if that had to do with those shots or not. I talked to, in that chaotic moment, asked the people around me, the people in the audience, the attendees that were near me, once we all sort of came up for air, if everyone was okay. I did not hear of anyone who was injured. People were certainly shaken up. The emotional landscape of those moments, those 10 to 15 minutes, Lester, was really tumultuous. Went from a very celebratory environment. There was music playing just before the former president came on stage. People were selling merchandise. Everyone was very hot, but very excited to hear him speak. It went from excitement to confusion. People weren't sure if this was part of the show or not. And then when people saw the former president get down, everyone got down. Sudden fear, shock, chaos, confusion. Then there were cheers. And then there was some anger, Jose. I will say that some members of the crowd started to turn on the press for a few minutes there, shouting at us, calling us fake news. Of course, that is somewhat a staple of Trump rallies. You might hear some helicopters overhead. It looks to be like a police helicopter flying over the scene right now. The former president will often point to the press then and call us fake news, and the folks who were in the crowd, again, confused and emotions running high, not clear what to make of what just happened. We didn't know if there was a shooter, who the shooter was, very frustrated as they were being escorted out of the venue. Again, we did not see anyone get injured. You saw the former president with some blood on his face, and at this point, he is safe. We are safe, and we are just looking to learn as many details as we can.
All right, Dasha Burns with that, excuse me, first-person account of what occurred there in Pennsylvania. And again, we saw that close-up picture of the former president, his face bloodied, but able to flash a thumb or a grin toward the crowd. One thing I note in these earlier video is that they're acting almost as if the threat had been over, because they linger on the stage for quite a while with the former president still upright before he's actually moved down to the vehicle, the armored vehicle. I want to go to Hallie Jackson right now. Hallie, are we getting any reaction from the Secret Service? Are they filling in any of the details?
I don't know if it's details, but they are at least responding here, as they are clearly in a moment of intense scrutiny as well, and obviously a heightened state of awareness given what just happened. So we know that the Secret Service is officially saying that this incident occurred. They do not specify what the incident actually is, what specifically happened, although we've obviously been seeing it and watching it for ourselves. The Secret Service, they say, has implemented protective measures, and the former president is safe. This is now an active Secret Service investigation, and further information will be released when available. You heard Dasha talking about being moved, obviously, from the scene of this rally because of this investigation that is now happening. But I want to underscore a couple of things here as we take a beat to just remind people where we are now. That at this moment, former President Donald Trump, based on what we're hearing from Secret Service and from his campaign, is safe. and is fine. Those are the words of Secret Service and his team. He is now being checked out, based on his campaign, at a local medical facility, presumably in the area of Butler, Pennsylvania, where this rally has been happening here. I can tell you we are also hearing from his son, Donald Trump Jr., who is posting a picture of his father in the seconds after this happened with his fist raised. It's an image, Lester, that we have showed a couple of times in our special coverage here, saying he'll never stop fighting to save America. We are also hearing from others in the broader political orbit, including, for example, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who says now is the time for every American who loves our country to step back from the division, renounce all violence, and unite in prayer for President Trump and his family. So that's the latest of where we are at this moment, with our team, of course, blanketing every source, every angle, trying to find out more information. The second that we get it, Lester, we will bring it to you.
Hallie Jackson, thank you. Here we are on the weekend before the Republican National Convention. If you were just joining us at the top of the hour, Lester Holt in New York. We are following the events in Pennsylvania, where former President Trump, appearing at a rally, suffered what appears to be a wound to his ear after pops were heard, multiple pops, according to witnesses, believed to be potentially gunshots. The former president, taken from the stage, surrounded by Secret Service, ultimately put into his armored vehicle and whisked away from the scene. You heard my colleague say that rally site is now a crime scene as the Secret Service now takes over in the investigation. There's certainly many details we've not been able to confirm or fill out at this point. We don't know the status of the shooter and or shooters. We don't know if other people were shot in this attack, but there you see the shot. I think that people will see a lot of the former president looking defiantly and triumphantly, even as he's led away with that bloodied face. We want to show you there is video of the incident. We're going to take a moment here and watch. Here it is.
That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Moving his hair. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move to the stair. Stair, get ready. Stair, get ready. We ready? Are we good? Shooter's down. Are we good to move? We're clear. Let's move. Let's move. We're clear. Let me get my shoes. I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes, sir. Hold on, your head is bloody. So we gotta move to the bus. Let me get my shoes. Okay, watch out.
The former president, obviously dazed by what had transpired. You hear him say, "Let me get my shoes," as Secret Service surrounds him. Typically, Secret Service protectees are protected by layers of teams. You see the folks usually in the dark uniforms there with the assault weapons. It's part of a counter-assault team that typically is certainly on presidential security. I can't tell you for sure if we would see it in this case, a former president, but nonetheless, you see these teams begin to surround Mr. Trump. And then somebody says clear. We don't know if they're referring to the threat. If the threat was neutralized, that's obviously the next worry, is to make sure that there is no further threat to the protectee, in this case, former President Trump, or anyone in the crowd. I want to bring in Jim Kavanaugh right now. He's a retired ATF special agent. Jim, please feel free to correct me, but what do we know about the layers of security and how they went into play here?
Yeah, I think your analysis is right, spot on here, Lester. They do have layered security. A lot of it is provided also by local law enforcement. You can see their SWAT teams are there assisting. And the former president has a permanent detail, of course, of Secret Service agents that protect him, a detail leader, a special agent in charge. They're all very close to him. You can see when he was hit, his face is actually turned to the right, and he grabs his right ear. Now, you can hear some small popping noises. And you can also see the crowd react to the noise. So, you know, I think I would probably rule out some sort of a slingshot. I think it is some sort of a weapon. Now, it could be a small caliber handgun that grazed his ear. That's a possibility there that's open. It also could be something like a simunition. And that's a round that we use in training, that police use in training. It will bust your skin. It will hurt you. It fires from a regular firearm. You know, sometimes people use similar type. There's various types, but sometimes they use them in paintball activities. So it could be a firearm, and that could be a small caliber weapon that just grazed him, because it looks like the shot came from the right, and he was actually facing the right. He had his head turned toward the right. So it doesn't appear the shot came from the bleachers above, which is a small group of supporters there, and it might have came more from his right, and there's multiple shots. So, you know, clearly, I mean, we'd look at this and say someone trying to shoot the former president in the head, misses mostly if he fired, you know, a few rounds, because you can hear some popping, but might have grazed him with one. Now, what kind of projectile it was, if it was, like say, if it was an actual firearm, I'd be thinking it's a small caliber weapon. The reports are not real loud that I can tell, although we'll probably get better audio. It doesn't sound like any kind of a rifle or anything. And he's dazed by it, Lester, and you made that observation a minute ago. He is dazed by it. So when he's hit by the projectile, he sees his head's facing right. I think you should note he's looking to the right, and there's the pops. You can hear two pops, and he grabs his ear. So it's a small caliber handgun if it's an actual firearm, or it could be a simunition that still breaks the skin, still causes an injury there.
And Jim, you and I have both been to events on this scale, and certainly I've been to presidential events on this scale, and you look around at the security challenge there. Everybody, of course, carries a smartphone right now, and, you know, they have to make a quick judgment. Is that a phone or is that a weapon?
Right.
A lot of movement, a lot of dynamic action going on at these sorts of events. I can't imagine it getting much more challenging from a security standpoint.
Yes, you're exactly right. You know, I served on many of these Secret Service details as an ATF agent over all my 33 years, and we were always called in on those details, especially the campaign years, to work close to the candidates. To, you know, some of the agents traveled extensively with them to supplement Secret Service. So other agents, and back then ATF was in Treasury with Secret Service, so we were always called upon to help them. But watch what happens once the former president is struck. They swarm him. They completely get around him, so another shot is hard to get him. That's what they're trying to do. When they yell clear, I would think they're yelling clear to the armored vehicle. They can go to the armored vehicle. That's what they want to do. And I would think that's the clear notice they're giving each other. Clear path to the armored vehicle, because that's what he wanted to do, is get him in and get him away.
Again, this is the weekend for the Republican National Convention. It is also the weekend that we were expecting we might hear former President Trump's announcement of a running mate. I want to go to Kristen Welker right now. Kristen, we have been watching these members of the so-called short list of potential nominees. Are we hearing from any of them? And if so, what are they saying?
Lester, we're hearing from all of them, and I should preface this by saying this is one of those rare and extraordinary moments that brings people together across the political aisle. So let me read you some of what we are hearing from the potential VP nominees, and then also some of the other reaction that we are getting from the political world. Senator Marco Rubio putting out on X, praying for President Trump and all those attending the rally in Pennsylvania today. Senator Vance posting, "Everyone join me in praying for our President Trump and everyone at the rally. I hope everyone is okay." Doug Burgum writing, "Please join Catherine and me, his wife, in praying for President Trump, his family, and everyone attending the rally." Carrie Lake also tweeting out her words of support. And then Senator Bernie Sanders, independent senator, posting, "Political violence is absolutely unacceptable. I wish Donald Trump and everyone else who may have been hurt a speedy recovery." Pausing on that last moment and that last thought, Lester, there has obviously been, and this has occurred against the backdrop of growing concerns about the political rhetoric in this country. Concerns certainly as we head into this summer season in which both parties will be holding their conventions, the Republican convention getting underway on Monday. And Lester, everyone watching closely.
All right, Kristen, thanks very much. I'll ask you to stand by because we want to go back to Dasha Burns. She is in front of a camera now and has witnesses to this attempted violence. Dasha.
Lester, so we made it out of the venue area. We have all evacuated. Again, press, attendees, everyone who was there is now out of the area. We are currently in the parking lot. Again, there were thousands of people at this rally, as there are at many rallies. There are a lot of cars in this parking lot, all looking to leave. As we were getting ready to speak with you, we just ran into Joe and Donna, a mother-son, who say that they were right there. They were in the area where this happened. Donna, let me start with you. First of all, are you okay?
Yes, I'm shook. I'm definitely shook up, but I'm okay. Yeah, and Trump was talking, watching him. I heard pop, pop, pop. I thought it was like a cap gun. And my son's like, God, get down. And next thing you know, everybody around us was down. And then once we got down, we was up at the top of our bleacher, the men were yelling to all the snipers and all the cops to come over because he had shot a man and a woman in our bleacher. We heard the one is very fatal. We don't know that for sure, but they were down. They went out on grenades.
So Joe, what exactly did you see? Because from our vantage point, we couldn't see what was going on. We didn't see any individuals. All we could do was listen for those sounds. But what did you see?
Again, I was watching the president, and you hear the gunshots go off. Remarks from up top said that the shooter actually climbed up the back of the bleacher. And after we got down, like my mom said, there was 2 people down. They were calling for medics. We did see the 2 people that were shot, and we saw them get carried out. Like, I don't know. The one didn't look like they were okay. I hope the other one's okay, and just may God watch over them tonight.
And Don, you said 2 people. Were these 2 people fellow attendees of the rally? And what kind of did you see them get shot directly, or did you just see the aftermath?
No, you just heard the noise. You heard the pop, 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 seeing the aftermath, and neither of them looked good. They were both down. Nobody was talking. Nobody was moving.
What was going through your mind as you were witnessing all of this?
Are they still here? And am I going to get shot? That's what's going through my mind. He's holding my hand, and we were going to get up and try to get out of here. And some gentleman there said, no, you stay down. So we stayed down, and then we finally heard everybody evacuate, and he grabbed my hand, and we got out of there.
And Joe, what was your state of mind coming into this rally today? What were you expecting, and what are you feeling now as we all experienced a day that none of us thought would come?
Well, I was excited. I mean, this is just our second rally, and the first one, Trump is very energetic when he comes to these, and well, now I want to vote for him more than ever.
Why is that?
Just to send a message to these people. They can't stop us.
Don't stop us. That's right.
Don, how are you feeling? I mean, you're here with your son. Of course, you want to protect your baby, and you don't want them or yourself to be in any danger. What were those mama instincts in that moment, and how are you feeling right now?
Exactly. My mama instincts were when he grabbed my hand, I knew my son was scared to death because he was holding my hand. He had held my hand since he was probably 5 or 6 years old. And so he held on to my hand, and you can imagine, my heart went into a million pieces. All I kept thinking was we got to be safe and get out of here. And I agree with Joe. Vote for Trump because this country got to get back in line. This is out of control.
How did you get out ultimately? How did you get here to safety?
Once they evacuated us, because right where we were sitting, we were able to just keep on going. We actually watched the snipers and everybody over on the side for a few minutes, but we just got out of there. We were scared.
What did you see from your vantage point of the snipers? These were the people protecting the former president.
That's correct. And now they were over in the lawn. They just were watching every single person with their guns going by. I believe the one injured person was over there that they had. Wasn't he on the one on the ground?
Yeah, so before they evacuated, they carried the 2 injured people out. Then they yelled for us to get evacuated. At that point, all the Secret Service were up in our section with the guns, and they were all in the field. Because like I said, rumor was he climbed up the back of our bleacher, so.
Joe, Donna, thank you both so much. I'm so glad you are safe. I know this was not the day that you were expecting, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Don't go too far. I might have some follow-up questions for you. So, Lester, there you have it. Another firsthand account. They were right there. This was not the experience anyone was expecting, still trying to grapple with what just happened here, Lester.
Dasha Burns, thank you for that interview. Very revealing. We should point out it's unconfirmed what those witness accounts were of other people who might have been wounded. We're tracking all that down, and as soon as we have more on that, we'll certainly bring it to you. I want to bring in our investigative correspondent, Tom Winter. He joins us on the phone with some new reporting on the events tonight. Tom?
Lester, incorporating the work of myself and my colleague Jonathan Dean, two senior U.S. law enforcement officials tell NBC News that there is a growing concern that this was a serious, or may have been a serious, attempt on the life of former President Donald Trump. Based on the facts of the investigation as they're developing them, again to repeat, two senior law enforcement officials tell NBC News that there is a growing concern that this may have been a serious attempt on the life of former President Trump. Lester, I can tell you, as you can well imagine, there is a lot of conflicting information right now as this investigation gets sorted out, what occurred on the ground, who heard what from where, and obviously we're proceeding with extreme caution as to what we're hearing and who may or may not have been involved. But there is definitely a concern that this may have been a serious attempt on former President Trump's life. And why that might be important, some people might say that that would be obvious. You know, different things can happen at these events. You don't know the sequence of events and how it happens. So the fact that there may have been serious intent here, and by somebody that might have been capable of doing this, is why we believe this is newsworthy. So that's the latest that we have right now. It's preliminary information from the scene, from people that have been briefed on what the investigation holds. And so we're going to continue to do our reporting and obviously get right back on with you as we get more information.
Yeah, Tom, stay with me very quickly. I just want to point out we saw some shots of police tape now being put around the area, the stands where former President Trump was apparently shot there earlier. That is now a crime scene. So what you're seeing is, in fact, a crime scene. The Secret Service likely to lead that investigation. But Tom, we've all talked about it. We've seen examples of it, political violence. This is something that law enforcement has been bracing itself for in this campaign season, is it not?
Without a doubt, Lester, I've lost track of the amount of times you and I have talked about it privately in the offices. We've reported on it. The FBI director, in an interview with you directly, said that he was concerned about this type of thing, Lester. And so I think everybody's been concerned about the potential issues, the potential things that could come up during the course of this election, given how divided the country is, given the level of threats. And so that's something that people are acutely focused on, for sure.
All right, Tom, thanks very much. I'll let you get back to your reporting and working out more details as this story develops here tonight. Let's bring in Evie Pomporis, a former Secret Service agent, joining me on the telephone right now. Can you give us a sense from what you have seen, give us your professional eye of what appears to transpire here?
Yes, so what we're seeing is him attending a rally, speaking at the rally, and then we hear the shots. That it almost sounds like these soft popping sounds. So we hear these multiple shots. We see him put his hand to his ear, and then you see the agents that come in. Those agents that come in are the shift. It's his detailed team. For them to come in like that, that means this is a serious threat. Something serious happened. We're also seeing the tactical team, and we're looking at the live shot. The shot of the tactical team. That's the element that comes in. When you see the tactical team, their job is to look for the threat. So you have two entities here. The agents in suits, they're the shift. Shift comes in, immediately comes on top of the president, and they are there to surround him and to make sure that the shots hit them. The tactical element that we see come in after, their job is to move out, and we see them facing out toward the crowd, and they are to look for the threat. Clearly, we see the agents that get around him. They shield him, and then they move in this unison to shield him body-wise so that nothing strikes him. They move him slowly down the stairs and make their way to the armored vehicles. That's what we're looking at. Now, Lester, if we're looking at how did this happen, again, this is all alleged, nothing's been confirmed, but if we're looking at what's going on here, what went, and it's soon to say, but how does such a thing happen? When you have rallies like this, ideally, you're supposed to have magnetometers. So that's going to be the first thing they're going to look at. Were there magnetometers, right? How did this weapon get in? Sometimes when it's a former president, you may not have all the elements that a sitting president would have, right? All the tactical capabilities. So it's going to be, how did that weapon get in? Were there magnetometers? Were people checked for weapons? And then from that point, where was that person positioned, right? How were they able to get in and get that angle of a shot?
Well, as we look at these pictures, again, as you described, the former president being rushed into that vehicle to be taken away from the scene, I keep thinking about what's happening in the crowd. Unfortunately, the cameras aren't pointing on the crowd, but given the number of pops or potential shots we heard, it seems a lot of people were at risk. You've covered these events, no doubt, as have I. A lot of people wanting to get close to their candidate. That's part of what happens in a campaign. How does the Secret Service draw the balance there as to create, a fortress of security at the same time, allowing people to do what people should be doing at rallies like this?
So let's go to your first point where there's people there. When you do these events, and I've done these events, it's called a site advance. When you secure an event like this, you're the site agent. So you have two goals, two missions. I am to protect the President of the United States, right? However, the other goal or mission is the people at this event. So yes, they're targeting, or let's assuming, right, that again, we don't have confirmation. But when someone is targeting the President, right, if they're going to shoot, yes, he's an issue, but also the people in the area are an issue, right? Where are all these rounds going? So when we hear these sounds, these small, these echoes of what appear to be shots, it wasn't one shot. There were multiple shots, and every round, Lester, has to go somewhere. It lands somewhere. Where are they going? So you've got all these people. So you are responsible not just for the safety of the U.S. president, but you are responsible for the people there. The president, think of him as he's a target, right? Wherever he moves, danger goes with him just because of what he attracts as a sitting U.S. president or a former president or a candidate. So when you put them in a place like this, you also have to think strategically, what about all the people there? Now, you'll see the barricades that are set up. You see the stage that's set up. What you may not see in that shot is you will have ingress and egress elements. That means you want multiple ways in and multiple ways out. So you want movement for the president. You also want to create an alternate movement for him if he can't get out the primary way. So we've got typically at least two ways in, two ways out. And those vehicles that are staged there, they are positioned there specifically to evacuate him. Because also you're in an open area here, right? So you don't have that concealment to cover. You have, whenever you do an open area like this, massive line of sight issues, meaning you can get the threat from so many different ways, so many different areas. And just one thing to touch on too, typically after an event like this, it's typically the FBI who comes in to do the investigation of what happened, right? So it's the Secret Service element is the element that does a protection, and the FBI typically is who's going to come in to investigate what and how did this happen.
Abby, let me ask you this. In terms of what kind of intelligence law enforcement has or is given before an event, we're in primetime campaign season. These candidates are out there doing sometimes multiple stops in a day, big crowds lined up. How much does local law enforcement know about potential threats? Maybe somebody in the crowd who has written a nasty email or a letter or that sort of thing.
They do. When you go out, a part of the advance team, when you go out, you work with the local police department. So here he's going to his location, right? He's going to a town, to a city, wherever he's going. You work from the beginning. You have many meetings with the local police department. The president, former president's coming in. He's going to do a rally, and we share intel. The U.S. Secret Service shares their intel. This is what we're hearing from our side. The local police department, typically because they know what's going on in their community, they're also going to have their ears to the ground. They're going to have intelligence and information. And then we have these meetings. The Secret Service will have these meetings before an event where everybody comes together and everybody shares. I'm hearing this. You're hearing this. What do we need to do? What elements do we need to put in place? So if you're hearing there's a lot of protesters. You're hearing talk that people are going to show up and cause problems. That is all communicated so that you can figure out what you need. And also, you can figure out what assets to put into the crowd to blend in. You're seeing the Secret Service suits. You're seeing the tactical team. You'll see uniforms for police department. But they also have an element there that is the unseen. We don't call them undercovers, but there's those agents in law enforcement who will circulate in the area in plain clothes and kind of lend their ear out and hear what's going on.
All right, Eva, you have been a tremendous help helping us understand the mechanics of security in a situation like this. Hopefully we can rely on you again to talk a bit later, but thank you so much. We continue to look at the video, the shocking video, frankly, from Pennsylvania, where earlier this evening, early evening here on the East Coast, someone apparently took shots at the former President Trump. As we heard two senior law enforcement officials saying, there is a growing concern that there may have been a serious attempt on the life of former President Trump. Apparently his wounds are survivable. He's apparently doing okay, but we saw him clutching his ear, a bloodied ear, as he was led from the scene. People heard multiple pops in the crowd. We are continuing to track information we can about any potential other victims in this, people who might have been in that crowd. This was a rally unlike pretty much like so many we have seen throughout this election season. People joyous, people excited about seeing the candidate, hearing what he had to say. Nobody signed up for this, however. I want to go to NBC's Dasha Burns, just outside that Trump rally north of Pittsburgh. Dasha, you were there as the crowds were trying to get out. As you watch the video, of course, your eyes are focused on former President Trump and his reaction, but you're also seeing people in the crowd who seem unaware, don't quite realize what's happening. I suppose that's not unusual. As you were able to exit the grounds, were people beginning to fill in some of the blanks of what they saw and heard?
Yeah, Lester, absolutely. There was a lot of confusion initially. You don't expect something like this to happen going in. There's so much security protocol when you come to a Trump rally. And as we were first hearing those sounds, so many people that I've talked to, myself included, our team here, thought it might have been fireworks. We weren't sure what was going on. Now, as everyone has taken a bit of a breath and is trying to absorb what happened, we now understand that that's not necessarily the case. We are coming to you live right now from the parking lot for this venue. Trump rallies attract thousands and thousands of supporters. There are thousands of cars here. And Lester, we are running into people who have evacuated the rally, are looking for their vehicles and trying to process what just happened. That's how I ran into Aaron here. Aaron was in the front row there near the former president. Aaron, first of all, are you okay? How are you feeling?
I'm okay. I was in the first row. I was directly in front of Trump, my seat. I was looking him in the eye. We heard the pops, maybe 3 minutes into the rally, 3 to 4 minutes. I heard 4 pops, pop, pop, pop. The 4 Secret Service immediately jumped on the stage, and we saw him push President Trump to the ground. Then the gentlemen that have the guns came up to start clear right, clear left. They said, get him up. So they lifted him up, and Trump said, I got to get my shoes on first.
Did his shoes come off?
His shoes must have, we couldn't see it underneath that, but his shoes must have come off when they dropped him down to the ground. So first thing he said, we could all hear it, I have to get my shoes on first. And when he stood up, I'm looking at him forward, I see the red teardrop right here of blood, fresh red blood, just a little tear. Then when they got him up and they turned him, I could see the blood from the top of the ear to the bottom. Wasn't gushing, but it was covered. And then he put the fist bump up, stay strong, and they walked him off.
Aaron, what was going through your mind? What did you think when you first heard those sounds?
I thought what you just said. I thought it was fireworks, 4th of July. It's been pop, pop, pop. That's what it sounded like. The gentleman behind me, I was one seat. He was to the right of me. He could see the sharpshooter behind Trump. He said the sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here. Now, when I called my husband at home, who's watching TV, he said, I thought Trump hurt his ear when he went to the ground. But he said, no, on TV they showed before Trump hit the ground, the ear was bleeding. So that sharpshooter went across, Trump turned his head, his ear must have been nipped. and it killed somebody in the stands over to the left.
Could you see anyone injured besides the blood on the former president?
All I saw was the gentleman from Beaver County who spoke earlier in the day. He was running for the State House Representative, Elmore, I know his name. He had a white shirt on, and I saw him come from that left stands where the people were mostly shot. I think there was several. They said 3 medevacs left here. Blood was down the right side of his. He wasn't shot, but you could see that he was next to somebody who must have been bleeding profusely, because he either helped them and ran, rubbed against them, or tried to get them help or something. It was covered. So I knew that he was near somebody. That was my first indication that somebody was actually shot, when I saw his blood on his shirt.
Erin, when did you realize that, hey, this might not be fireworks, this might be something else?
When they got Trump down on the ground. And then we were just so concerned that he wasn't hit, because we couldn't. It happened so fast. It's really hard to process it. I guess if you have it on your camera to see the exact minute, you can tell. But when he got up, he did not look bad at all. He didn't. He looked very strong. So then I saw that little bit, when I saw that blood, I thought, oh, he must have just hurt himself, hopefully. But it does appear that he was probably nicked by that bullet. That
Erin
turned his head just in the nick of time, but just.
And Erin, you were so near to all of this yourself. You were right there. How did you personally feel about your own safety? Were you scared? What was that experience?
I was totally not scared for my own. None of us in that front row went down to the ground. Not a one. We wanted to only help the president. That's all we wanted to do. Either we could protect him, we could stand around him. I didn't see one person in the row hit the ground. Not one. I was shocking. No one was concerned about us. We were only concerned about him.
Now, you're somewhere safe. You're out of there. As you're starting to process this, I know we'll all be processing this over the coming days and weeks. How are you feeling now in this moment?
Well, what I've heard coming out here is now they feel that there was 2 shooters on both sides. So they got the one on the tower on this side, but the one on the right side they never got. So that's why they wanted us to leave immediately, because they thought there's still a shooter out there somewhere. So there could be in these woods around Butler.
Erin, I've covered many Trump rallies. I don't know how many you've been to.
My 6th. This is yours. I was here. I was the 4th car in the parking lot this morning at 20 to 7. So I've worked all day.
You've been here all day.
I knew you were NBC.
We're here. Look, the atmosphere coming into a Trump rally, the supporters, very jovial, very celebratory. Typically, people are selling merchandise, food. What were you coming in with today, and what are you leaving with tonight?
Well, I was here 4 years ago when he was in Butler. It was like 58,000 people. I tell people it was the most magical night of my life. When he came on that helicopter and circled 2 times, he had 4 rallies that night. It was just an unbelievable night. And I was anticipating to be another unbelievable night, but not this way. And it's just very sad. I mean, all these people that came to see him and to have him hurt, I can't even describe it, I just feel sad. I feel sad for our country. I feel sad for everybody, I mean, you don't like the guy, don't vote for him. Don't kill him. We love the guy. We're going to vote for him. I mean, what is up with his violence? I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, I just wish that people I'm glad that guy's no longer with us anymore in that tower. And I hope they get the other one too. And I hope they don't nick him. I hope they get him and he's down.
Erin, thank you so much. I'm so glad. No, I'm so glad you're safe. I know it's a lot to process today. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Absolutely.
A lot of people knew that Trump's shoes must have fallen off.
The shoes in new detail. And Lester, of course, this is an eyewitness account. We don't have those details confirmed. This is what Erin witnessed from her vantage point. We will wait for law enforcement to give us those details. But again, this is a developing situation. And right now, Erin and so many others just trying to make their way home, as there are thousands of people who were in this parking lot. Quite a bit of a traffic jam at this point, as people are trying to make their way out. And of course, Lester, make sense of what it is that they just witnessed.
Yeah, Dasha, thank you for your continued great reporting there as we get these accounts, and it bears reiterating. Look, folks, there are things that we're hearing, things we're learning. We will tell them to you when we can confirm them. Obviously, the witnesses have been describing potentially other victims in this, and we continue to work that angle very aggressively. As we know more, we'll tell you about this. The same in terms of what we will hopefully be able to learn about who was behind this attack. As soon as we can tell you something we can verify, we will go right to that. Our senior White House correspondent, Kelly O'Donnell, joins us now. Kelly, talk to me about reaction from the Biden administration, obviously watching this with great concern tonight.
Well, Lester, there are important steps that the administration takes at this point. The current president has been briefed by the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, and of course, her agents were with former President Trump, are getting direct information from the scene to the president. In addition, the president has been talking with his Secretary of Homeland Security and his Homeland Security advisor inside the White House. That, of course, is Alejandro Mayorkas, the secretary at the cabinet level, and Liz Sherwood Randall, who advises the president on potential homeland threats inside the United States. In this moment, it is not candidate and candidate. This is the sitting president having to deal with the law enforcement piece, the national security implications, and sort of the mindset of the nation when an event like this happens. So the president is getting those threads of information coming into him. He is in Delaware right now. The vice president has also received an initial briefing. And certainly we are also hearing from others who have had their own experience and still do with the Secret Service. Former President George W. Bush putting out a statement saying that he and Laura Bush are grateful to the Secret Service that they were able to get former President Trump to safety, and they're concerned, of course, about what this incident was about, and they thank first responders for their swift action. So all the apparatus of the federal government shifts to deal with something like this. The Secret Service is involved in the investigation. They are also, of course, involved in the day-to-day protection of the former president. I have been told, based on my reporting, that the level of protection that he would receive as a former president, which has been his existence these last 3.5 years, heading into the convention in Milwaukee, he would be getting a larger detail as the presumptive candidate going forward. So expecting already plans in the works for him to have a more robust set of agents and procedures around him. They're also, of course, waiting to envelop the new running mate to be named at some point, and that person would also have Secret Service protection when former President Trump announces his pick. What happened today rattles the very core of the Secret Service. They do train for this. They are dealing with this potential threat at every event all the time. Here at the White House, where I am right now, no visible sign of any enhanced security. They are focused on certainly the events surrounding the former president at that location. It would also include state and local authorities who would be on the ground participating in the investigation, which would typically be led by the FBI. So as far as any contact from the president, he's got a team of senior advisors around him who are able to give him direct information from the Secret Service as well as the Department of Justice, law enforcement, and importantly, those Homeland Security advisors, both at the cabinet level and inside the White House, who may have more of a picture about potential threats or concerns that our colleague Tom Winter was talking about. That's where we are at this point from the White House, Lester.
Kelly O'Donnell, thank you very much. Excuse me. The good news is, again, we saw the former president leaving, getting into the car, pretty much under his own power, certainly supported and escorted to safety. But he looks like he will be okay. And once again, flashing that triumphant fist that is characteristic of many of his campaigns. For those of you just tuning in, we want to play for you the moment when Secret Service agents rushed former President Trump off the stage. We want to caution you that we don't know exactly who said what's captioned on the screen or why they said it, because it was such a chaotic moment, but here it is.
Are we good? Shooters down. Are we good to move? We're clear. We're clear. Let's move. We're clear. Come on.
And again, that moment of chaos, you hear the screams in the crowd as people are beginning to learn that something is amiss there. Our investigative correspondent, Tom Winter, is with us on the phone. He continues to get reaction and national security details. What can you tell us now?
Lester, while I'm on the phone with you, one of my colleagues is on the phone with the local district attorney in that county who tells NBC News that the alleged shooter, the person they believe responsible for this event, is in fact deceased. So again, to repeat, the local district attorney in the area where the Trump rally is telling one of our colleagues right now that in fact the alleged shooter, the person they believe to be responsible for this, is deceased. We do not yet have a name or identity of that individual. We don't know their background, where they may have come from, any sort of personal motivations. That's information we're still trying to gather. But that's the headline. The second component of this, 3 senior U.S. law enforcement officials tell myself and colleague Jonathan Dienst that there appear to have been, or they're looking into whether or not several other individuals were shot that were in the crowd. Those are not individuals suspected to be involved in this. Those were either rally goers or bystanders, but they're looking into whether at least 2 other individuals were shot as well. So that's the latest update that would seem to indicate to us a couple of things. One, they believe they know who did this. They believe they know where they were, potentially what they were using, and they can now start to do a lot of detailed investigative work. We don't know, although there is no indication at this time, that any other individual was involved, but obviously it's very early and very preliminary on that front, and a lot more work will presumably need to be done.
Yeah, let me just follow up on that. I think you may have answered the question, but we did hear from one witness a bit earlier who seemed to believe that there were 2 individuals involved. You're saying that the local DA is saying 1 shooter is deceased. So the belief is that it is a single shooter?
The belief at this time is that that's the case, because what they said was that the person they believe is responsible is deceased. So they did not indicate that there were any other individuals. But that's, again, Lester, as you well know, we're less than 2 hours into this, and so there's a lot of information, a lot of things that are fluid on the ground. And just because this individual may or may not have been assisted by others at this rally, did they have any sort of help in any other way? Those are big questions that'll be answered in the next couple of minutes or hours. Typically, based on past events, as you know, this is usually just 1 individual that's involved. But of course, investigators have to keep their minds open, and as reporters who are relying on that information, the investigation that is going on in our own homework, well, we're keeping our minds open too.
And Tom, you and your team certainly have a huge depth of experience in these kind of breaking news matters, especially when they involve issues like what we're seeing play out here. Is it likely this thing is going to unfold very quickly, that they will work backwards from the moment of the shooting and have a pretty good idea of what they're dealing with?
So let's take, for law enforcement, worst case scenario with respect to the investigation. If this individual had no identity on him, no sort of background, the FBI would be able to instant fingerprint him at the scene. They would be able to get information, and either that way they'd look into facial recognition to see if they could identify him in any sort of government database. From there, you might know where the individual lives, any relatives. They will comb through every inch and ounce of his social media. They will have the ability to go to social media companies and ask for an emergency warrant, and they will most certainly be granted to get access to those communications, cell phone communications, text communications.
Tom?
All of that will be part of the instant investigation.
I apologize to ask you a question, then I have to interrupt you, but we are getting some confirmation. The Butler County DA is now telling us that one spectator has died in this incident. 1 has been apparently wounded and is in critical condition, and the shooter, as Tom has been reporting, is dead. So to repeat that news, and this comes via the Butler County DA, 1 spectator at this Trump rally is dead. Another is in critical condition, and the shooter, what we believe right at this hour, the lone shooter, is also dead. And as our colleague Tom Winter was reporting, they will work very quickly and work backwards, and will likely know a lot about this individual in a short amount of time. You see former President Trump trying to acknowledge the crowd while being obviously stunned and being led to the safety of an armored vehicle, but it appears that he is okay, suffering what we've all been able to see, some sort of a graze-type wound to his ear. We hear him, asking for his shoes. He is led away. He continues to turn toward the crowd to offer a sense of assurance that he is okay. He is now clear of that scene as people continue to leave, all of them telling stories of hearing these pops. Some of them, one woman we had on was able to describe the shooter. Now that we've got that confirmed, her account certainly jibes with what we're getting now from the officials in Butler County, Pennsylvania. And that is the crowd here trying to trying to rally their spirits, and certainly this was several minutes apparently into the former president's rally there in Pennsylvania when this occurred. Multiple what sounded like shots, pops, but we presume there were gunshots fired in his direction as he was looking to the right, and a little unclear, he grabs his ear, and then you can see this team of Secret Service agents can quickly swarm him, confirm that he is clear, out of danger, the risk nullified, and then he is escorted to his vehicle and to safety. That area you're looking at right now is a crime scene. We've seen subsequent pictures where you see the police crime tape, and they will treat it as any other crime scene and try to get the details of this. We don't know what this means in terms of the exact injury that former President Trump received, what treatment he may be receiving, what this will do to his ability to campaign. We certainly, of course, expect to see him in this coming week as the Republican National Convention is about to begin on Monday in Milwaukee. So RNC officials certainly trying to figure that out. But right now, the greatest concern is from that angle is the health of the former president, and of course thoughts also turning now to the one spectator who was killed in this, another spectator who was in critical condition from a wound sustained during all this. NBC's Dasha Burns is just outside that Trump rally north of Pittsburgh. She has been giving us plenty of updates here. Dasha, as you've heard, we've now been able to confirm that at least one spectator has been killed in this, and the shooter himself is dead.
Lester, just for those who are joining us in this moment, just a reminder that our team, we were in the press pen when this happened. We were in front of a camera, just getting off camera as the former president started to speak. Just a few minutes into his speech, this transpired. We ran for cover as we were trying to figure out what exactly had happened, initially thinking it was fireworks, then realizing it could be something more serious, and now, of course, we know deadly. I am in the parking lot right now, just outside of this venue. This is where press and general attendees have had their cars parked. This is where we evacuated to when we were told to leave the site that is now a crime scene. And I've been running into witnesses here as people have been trying to find their cars, trying to make their way out. And that is where I ran into a man named Joseph, and I want to introduce him to you now. And as we just learned, Joseph, you weren't listening to the program here, but Lester Holt, NBC News, just reporting that one of the attendees has deceased, has died from injuries as a result of the shooting. Joseph, you told me off camera that you may have witnessed this, and I'm so sorry to be talking to you in this tragic moment, but can you describe what it is that you saw?
I was attending the rally. I was in the set of bleachers, the very far left of the podium where President Trump was speaking. You know, I was there with friends. I heard several gunshots. The man beside me suffered a gunshot wound to the head, was instantly killed, fell to the bottom of the bleachers. Another woman looked like she got hit in the forearm or hand. And then at that point in time, it was rather chaotic at that point because half the people were looking because they thought it was fireworks. I knew it was gunshots right away. My friend, you know, he hit the deck. I was kind of looking around just trying to see where the shots were coming from. It seemed to me like the shots were coming from behind the bleachers. It seemed to me the man got hit in the head from behind. He was killed instantly, as far as I could tell. And at that point, a state police and a SWAT team, you know, started evacuating the bleachers, and then I helped carry the man out of the bleachers to a tent that was behind the bleachers.
You helped carry the man yourself. What was his condition when you were carrying him?
He's deceased. He died.
How close were you to him?
A couple yards. I mean, it wasn't very far.
Did you know the man?
No, it's a complete stranger. They put a towel over his head and then carried him off.
And you said there was another woman nearby who was also injured. Where was she in relation to him?
I believe she was in the bleachers, like either behind, above me, or just to the side of him. But it seemed like she was kind of at my flank, and then she flinched, and it looked like she had taken a gunshot wound to the forearm and hand.
Joseph, from where I was standing, we heard multiple gunshots, 8 to 11 shots. We've been hearing it replayed on the video here. Do you remember, can you tell, I know it was a chaotic scene, but at what point, was it immediately when you heard the gunshots that he was shot, or was it later on into the firing?
The first 7, he was hit and she was hit within the first 7 shots. I counted 7 shots.
What was going through your mind? You were right there. I know it happened so quickly, but what can you tell us about those moments?
First, I was in shock because I know what gunshots sound like, so I knew they were gunshots. I couldn't tell from where they were coming from. And when I noticed someone got hit, then I noticed, well, it seemed like they were coming from behind me. And it just was pandemonium. And then I heard some more shots, and I couldn't quite tell where they were coming from. But I counted the first 7, and they were very loud and very close. And it killed one man and wounded another woman.
And Joseph, you told me that you're a doctor, you're an OBGYN. How did that background play into how quickly you were sort of able to assess the situation and know what happened to these individuals and know what was going on?
Well, I told the police, I tried to render assistance. I told the police I could render assistance. They had another physician on the EMT team, so they kind of took over. So they didn't really need me, so I kind of helped carry them down initially out of the bleachers. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't, the man that got hit, there was no assistance that needed to be given. And unfortunately, his family witnessed the whole thing. It seemed like he had several family members in the bleacher with him. And they were quite upset. They didn't know, they were in shock. They didn't quite know what was going on. But the man was definitely killed instantaneously.
Could you tell sort of how many family members or people who knew him were with him, and what was their reaction?
I thought there was 5 people. 2 of them were relatively hysterical. So, but they were, when we took the man out of the bleachers, he went to the tent. There was an aid tent or some type of tent behind the bleachers where they took the body, and they immediately evacuated the family with them. And 2 out of the 5, it seemed, in shock, hysterical. Like they were still trying to process what was going on.
Joseph, from where I was standing, we heard the shots. We saw the president go down.
Yeah, I saw President Trump get hit.
What can you tell us? What details you remember?
It seemed like his head was off to the side, and it seemed like he got nicked in the ear.
Was that before the Secret Service took him down to the ground, covered him?
Right before the Secret Service. I mean, it was maybe, again, it's hard to tell, time dilates when, it seemed like it was a second or 2. Like that first 7 shots that went off, the man got hit. He was killed almost instantly. The woman in the bleachers, she got injured, she got hit in the forearm and the hand. And then in those rounds that were fired, again, I was videoing the event, so that's when I saw Trump get hit. And it seemed to me like he was looking to the side and the round grazed his ear. So.
Could you tell the gentleman that was hit in the head what angle he was in relation to the former president, like which direction the bullets were coming from and to?
So it looked like he was facing the president at the very far left portion of the bleachers, so he's directly facing it. Again, it seemed to me like the shots were coming from the rear, like behind us. And for me, it seemed like the man was in the way. I guess...
In the way of the former president?
No, it seemed like the man was in the way of the shots between whoever was shooting the gun and the president. The man was hit. It seemed like he was in the crossfire.
And I know... And I know you're in shock and still processing all of this. It's sort of hard to evaluate our own emotions in this moment, but you just experienced something horrific.
Yes.
What can you tell us about your state of mind right now?
Yeah, I've had opportunities to go to these rallies before. It was the first one I ever went to. I had, time off to go do it. I was kind of excited to go, but, it's... everyone, it's something you don't expect. It comes out of the blue. It's like a bolt out of the blue, and it's shocking. The way politics goes in this country, it just seems like it's really polarized. Everyone's just very angry. I'm honestly shocked this didn't happen earlier. I was commenting to my friend who went to the event with me. I was like, the back behind the bleachers, it's really open. It seems like a really open venue, and it just, I got this sense that, if someone really wanted to do something, and again, I was openly talking to her, and I was like, if something bad was going to be happening, this is the perfect venue to have. I just said this like an hour before it happened. I was like, this would be the perfect place to do it. And, surprisingly enough, it happened.
A devastatingly prescient observation from you. Let me ask you one more question, because from where I was, there was confusion, then Trump stood up and there were some cheers, and then people sort of remained, those that weren't in sort of the immediate zone where you were, people were still sort of cheering, talking, trying to figure out what was going on. How quickly did you know that whether or not there was still a dangerous situation? It seemed like people sort of started to try to move on very quickly, not sure what had happened, right? So how soon did you know whether or not it was even safe? Did you want to get out of there? What did you witness in sort of the immediate aftermath once the shots stopped?
Well, it seemed after the shots went off, everyone thought it was a prank. Everyone, I think, got a sense, like when I looked out into the crowd, everyone thought I think the initial reaction, everyone thought it was a prank. I knew better it was a gunshot because I just saw a guy got hit. And it did.
For those of us that didn't see, some people started laughing, some people were confused. It wasn't immediately clear to the crowd that didn't witness what you witnessed, you know, that this was in fact a dangerous and deadly situation.
Oh, it was a dangerous and deadly situation. The problem is it's a large crowd, and when the gunshots went off, I think they were, again, my sense was they were being shot from behind, so they sounded a bit muffled. So it sounded more like a firecracker going off. So I think the initial reaction from the people around me were like, okay, well, someone brought fireworks. I just knew better. I knew what gunshots sound like. And, you know, when I saw the guy took a gunshot wound to the head, and I saw the woman who got hit in the forearm and the hand, I just knew that it wasn't fireworks. I mean, it wasn't fireworks initially, but I think the majority of the crowd didn't understand that it was gunfire. And I think people took it really seriously when the SWAT team started jumping over the rails. So I don't know what to tell you outside of that.
Joseph, I know this, I can't imagine what it takes to describe what you just witnessed in these moments right in the aftermath. So we thank you so much for sharing.
We're happy to.
Lester?
Dasha, thank you for that account. I mean, no one should have to, you know, fear for their life going to a political rally, something that is uniquely American. But these people have experienced the horror of someone opening fire on the crowd, and a former president who was, of course, the headliner at this rally tonight. As we've been reporting, one spectator is dead, another is in critical condition. The shooter, this all according to the Butler County DA, the shooter is also deceased. Our senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joins us again. Kelly, you have a new statement from President Biden.
That's correct, Lester. This is from President Biden, who is in Rehoboth, and he talks about this incident. He begins by saying, I've been briefed on the shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania. I'm grateful to hear that he's safe and doing well. I'm praying for him and his family and for all those who were at the rally as we await further information. Jill and I are grateful to the Secret Service for getting him to safety. There's no place for this kind of violence in America. We must unite as one nation to condemn it. The words of Joe Biden after learning about this incident involving his predecessor and his current rival in the political environment of this 2024 campaign. The president has been briefed by top officials. He has been talking with Homeland Security officials, and he is at his home in Rehoboth, Delaware, where he has a full complement of the things needed for the office, where he can get the income streams of all the relevant information. This first statement coming from President Biden, I would not be at all surprised if we don't hear more from him tonight as new developments take place. Lester?
All right, Kelly, thank you for that. Terry Schultz is with the Butler County, Pennsylvania District Attorney's Office and was at the rally. She is still there and joins me on the phone. Terry, first of all, if you can just walk us through what you saw, where you were in this crowd.
You know what? We didn't have VIP seats. We were a few rows back, enough that we could, you know, see the former president, and then we were all standing there watching the jumbotrons they had put him on. And the next thing we did was we hear 3 shots. I see kind of his head, the former president's head, go sideways. You know, you can see kind of like, you know, blood. And at that point, I wasn't looking at anything. I was with some friends. They were like, you need to get down. Everybody get down. The people around me, there were some young people crying. And to be honest with you, at the time this happened, I wasn't even sure they were gunshots. But then we heard like 3 or 4 shots, and then we heard shots kind of returned. A friend of mine videotaped that, and we just watched that, and that's what we saw and what we heard.
From your vantage point, were you able to see where the shots were coming from? Was it obvious?
It was not, but you could hear them, and as soon as you heard the shots, your head turned towards the left. We have a route that runs outside the Butler Farm Show, Route 68, and it sounded like the shots were coming from out there near the field to the left-hand side of where we were. So it certainly was scary.
You know, we look at the videotape, and it appears some people didn't quite realize what was happening at the moment. Were you one of them who was not quite sure what you were witnessing?
It's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something,
absolutely. And again, until I was with some friends, and my girlfriend is like, "You have to get down." People around us were pulling us down and saying, "You have to get down." So I can tell you that it was chaos at the time.
Have you been to one of these rallies before?
I have not. It was my first time at a rally, and I was certainly excited, to go to one. We had so many people there. But I can tell you the chaos that this created. Everyone was scared. You see the former president and what's happening, and and then when I ascertained what had happened from my Pennsylvania State Police friends, it was very scary. But it was my understanding that they got the shooter. But that really doesn't make a difference, because it was just scary. Yeah,
that's our understanding is the shooter is deceased, and again, one of the spectators as well, and one critically hurt, a spectator, and the former president is going to be okay. But you bring up a point I think we will all be talking about, and that is, of course, we don't know what the motivation was for this, but it certainly comes at a time that we are all keenly aware of the deep divisions and the risk of political violence. Is it something you even thought about as you set out to attend this rally tonight?
To be honest with you, no, not at all. I guess I know that there's political unrest in the country. But in no way did I think that this would happen. And what concerns me more is it's not only political, but there are innocent people here, and look what happened. And it should just never happen in our country. It really should not.
Your point is certainly well taken. I know you're with the DA's office there. Do you have any special insight into how the investigation is proceeding?
Well, I know that I'm seeing a lot of news trucks around here. I know that there were tons of Secret Service here. And again, I guess for me, I just question how somebody got through security, or where this person was in a field that somebody wasn't looking after them. And I guess that's just me and from my perspective of what I do.
Yeah. All right, Terry, thank you very much. As we continue to look at some of the pictures of the aftermath, we've shown you some of the still photos as well of people crouched down for safety, not sure at that moment where the threat was coming from. I want to tell you, we are hearing that we will hear from the president. We read his statement a few minutes ago. We will hear from President Biden at some point this evening. We don't have a firm time on that, but we'll keep you honest and let you know when we know more about that. In the meantime, let me bring in our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson. Hallie, we're all shocked and certainly saddened over the loss of life here and the injuries, and we're certainly grateful that the former president is okay. But this is going to be a very tough conversation in the weeks coming forward, one we've had on different levels before. Share your thoughts, if you would.
Yeah, and none of it, of course, taking away, Lester, from, as you described, the urgency and frankly, the devastation of this moment given what we have now learned about what has happened at this rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. I can tell you that our team here at NBC News is out to a myriad of campaign sources close to former President Trump. And obviously the latest that we've heard, and you've been reporting this, is that he is okay. He is, in the words of a spokesperson, fine and being looked at. We are seeking more information. I can also tell you that based on a message to staff obtained by our colleagues here at NBC, Alan Smith and Matt Dixon, a top campaign official is telling staff members that everything is okay, that we have no details to share at this time, but saying they'll follow up soon with more information. They are directing staff members to not speak with members of the media. They want what they describe as a total lockdown here. They add that your personal safety is of the utmost importance here, to pray, remain vigilant, and be strong. That is the messaging now, according to NBC News, that Trump campaign staff members are getting from the top, as there is just, it is always, of course it is chaotic in the moments after something like this happens. And it's also, I think, another reason to be extraordinarily careful in what and how we report what we know has occurred here in what is just a historic day here in the United States, Lester.
Yeah, and then, of course, Hallie, we are here on the weekend before the Republican National Convention. Obviously, there will be some changes. We don't know what is in effect, but we're hitting primetime campaign season now.
Yeah, we sure are, right? And this is a moment where everybody begins to pay attention, especially considering the start of the convention. I mean, think about it, Lester, not looking at the time here just after 8 o'clock Eastern, not maybe 3+ hours ago. You know, the biggest story that I think most campaign reporters were chasing was who Donald Trump picked to be his running mate. That was sort of much of the attention here on this rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The conversation has clearly and necessarily changed very dramatically since then. I think one of the questions moving forward is going to be the movements of former President Trump. How long is he going to remain at the medical facility where he's at now? Where will he head after that? Does he still plan to be at the Republican National Convention starting on Monday? Obviously, that kicks off in Milwaukee with the expectation that at some point between now and of course, next week, he would announce his vice presidential pick. That is obviously taking a back seat to the immediate question of his own health and safety, as he is the presumptive Republican nominee here. And we are going to try to get some answers to those questions just as soon as we can, Lester.
All right, Hallie, we'll ask you to stand by. Thanks. Let me bring in Kristen Welker, moderator of Meet the Press. She's in Washington. Kristen, you're learning a little more from the Biden campaign, their immediate reaction to this.
Lester, we are, and our Monica Alba, who covers the Biden campaign, has this reporting that according to a campaign official, the Biden campaign is pausing all outbound communications and working to pull down our television ads as quickly as possible. And Lester, this underscores part of the conversation we were having earlier, which is that this is a moment that brings the country together in shock, in condemnation for this political violence. We are hearing from all quarters of the political universe, including some of those who have been quite critical of former President Trump. Liz Cheney, for example, saying the reports of the shooting in Pennsylvania are horrifying. Violence of any kind has no place in American politics. We are grateful for the reaction of the Secret Service and other law enforcement and pray for the former president and all those injured. Similar messages from former President George W. Bush, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and on, Lester. And it does come on the eve of the Republican National Convention. Former President Trump, his campaign apparatus, Republicans all over the country poised to go to Milwaukee to officially nominate former President Trump as their party's nominee. And as Hallie was just saying, we anticipated and we were working on trying to determine who the former president would pick to serve as his vice presidential nominee. And now, of course, the focus has shifted to this horrifying topic of political violence and what this country needs to do to prevent something like this from happening again, Lester.
All right, Kristen Welker. Kristen, thanks very much. Let me reset here for our viewers just joining us on this Saturday evening. We are on the air with breaking news. There has been a shooting at Donald Trump's Pennsylvania rally this evening. The former president has been injured. How he was injured is not clear at this time. I want to pause here. We're going to roll the video of what happened just shortly after 6 p.m. here in the East while Mr. Trump was speaking. Here it is.
A bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Move to spare. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to spare. Spare, get ready. Spare, get ready. You ready? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good? Shooters down. Shooters down. Are we good to move? Shooters down. We're good to move. We're clear. We're clear. Let's move. We're clear. Come on.
Let me get my shoes. Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay. Shoes down. Watch out.
I want to bring in now Evie Pouris, a former Secret Service agent. We thank you for joining us again. We hear at one point, I didn't hear this in the earlier recordings, we hear at one point one of the tactical clothed individuals say the shooter is down. As you watch that unfold, I take it they were not prepared to move him until they knew where the threat was.
Yes, you can hear that clear line of communication, and the communication is very clear and succinct. Can we move? Are we clear? You hear shooters down, and you hear, are we clear to move? Clear to move. So you're hearing them speak to one another. And radio communication is one of the most important things. Actually, when it comes to comms, you always want to say less. You can hear them using very simple words, 3, 4 words. They just want to keep those airwaves clear so that the most important, vital communication can pass. So they're making sure they hunker down. You see them surround him. He goes down to the ground. They all surround him. Again, when you're an agent, you're supposed to be a human shield. And in that moment, that is what they become. They become human shield. Your job in that moment is to protect your protectee, whoever that protectee is. So they all encompass him. And the other thing you are designed to actually make yourself as big as possible to make sure that any potential rounds or shots that come, you don't want them to miss you and hit your protectee. So as they're hunkered down, they're locking him down. And if you look at the shot, actually, there's a shot where you can see the front of the stage, and around it, you'll see that design, that almost like a smaller, like a design barrier. It's got the flag around it. That typically, and I can't say whether it is or is not in this case, but in some scenarios, when you work as a side agent, you will pick a barricade that's actually something strong and sturdy. It could be concrete or steel. Usually it's some type of steel, and that is used for that when something does happen, unfortunately, like we're seeing here, they can actually get down to the ground so that they have some type of cover.
Evie, thanks. Really important information we're learning from you. I want to let folks know we believe, moments away from hearing President Biden. He is going to stand at that podium, and we believe this is in Delaware. Somebody can confirm for me. But he will address the nation about these events tonight in Florida. The shooting that apparently wounded former President Trump, who is said to be okay. It killed a spectator, wounded another who's in critical condition. The shooter, who has not been identified, we know nothing about that person's background or what might have motivated him. That shooter is said to be deceased as well. This story has been rolling out, and here is the president.
Thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have engaged in making sure that the people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to give, if it's not convenient for you all. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that there's thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do, okay?
Mr. President, do you think there was an assassination attempt?
I don't know enough to, I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments. Thank you.
Are you worried about your own safety? Was the security failing
the president stopping short of calling this an assassination attempt, but noting that he plans to talk to Donald Trump and that his understanding is the former president is doing well. President Biden speaking out against the scourge of political violence, saying there's no room for this. And as we had reported a few moments ago, the Biden campaign moving to take down its advertising, a pause in its political advertising in the wake of this. We know that the president couldn't confirm, but we have confirmed that at least 2 spectators were shot, 1 killed. Another who is in critical condition, and again, the shooter, who we don't know a lot about right now, is also deceased. Let me go back to Kristen Welker in our Washington, D.C. bureau. The White House getting out in front of this very quickly, Kristen.
Lester, they sure are, and President Biden condemning this in the strongest terms possible, which is what you would anticipate it. He has long condemned political violence. He said this is unheard of. Everybody must condemn it. He did say he had tried to speak with the former president, whom he referred to as Donald. He also noted, Lester, that he is receiving thorough, robust briefings from his national security team, from his federal agencies, and that will undoubtedly continue throughout the night. The White House will undoubtedly need to keep the public informed throughout the night. It comes, as you point out, as they have pulled down and are working to pull down all of their ads, as the Trump campaign is in a media blackout. And it speaks to, Lester, the seriousness of this moment, the gravity of this moment, the fact that, quite frankly, something has just shifted in our American politics, in our country. This act of political violence, which, as the president said, cannot and will not be tolerated. And it does come as everyone is preparing to go to Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention, another event that will be met with heavy security. The perimeter there will be quite strong, quite large. Getting into the actual area where the convention is taking place will undoubtedly require going through magnetiles, making sure that no one is armed going into that event. But again, Lester, this just underscores, I think, that something fundamental has really shifted in our American politics today.
Yeah, it's certainly, the threat has been talked about, but to see it play out on this scale is certainly horrifying. Kristen, thank you for that. We'll go back to you in a bit. Let's bring in our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson. You have a statement from Donald Trump Jr., the former president's son.
Yeah, via a spokesperson to our colleague Peter Nicholas, that listen, you heard President Biden say he tried to reach former President Trump on the phone. We know that the former president's son has spoken with him in a statement saying they just talked on the phone, with Donald Trump Jr. saying that his dad is in great spirits, that he will never stop fighting to save America, no matter what in Donald Trump Jr.'s words, no matter what the radical left throws at him. So what we can glean from this, a couple of things, that former President Trump is, as his campaign says, fine. He is well enough to speak. He is well enough to be on the phone, at least with his immediate family members, at least with his son, Donald Trump Jr. We know that he is receiving medical treatment at a local facility with this rally happening, of course, in Butler, Pennsylvania. And we know that there has been a slew of reaction, as Kristen, as you, as others have talked about from both sides of the aisle here, strongly condemning political violence after this very difficult day in American politics. Lester, we'll keep you updated as we get more.
All right, Hallie, thank you. Kip Tom, former U.S. ambassador to the UN, was just a few yards from the former president when the shots rang out. Thank you for joining us, sir. Can you tell us what you saw?
Well, I was just with the president a few moments earlier before he came on stage, and everything seemed like a normal day. But when he walked down that red carpet and walked up to the podium, and after he spoke for about 10 minutes, I was sitting in the front row at the end of the runway, but all of a sudden these shots broke out. And I think there was people that actually thought it was possibly fireworks, but I seen the gun smoke, and obviously there was a person about 15 foot behind me that was hit. So I think severely wounded at the least. But nonetheless, the crowd stayed pretty calm for the most part. And but you know, it sounded like there was 6, 7 shots to start with, and then it seemed like there was a little pause, and then we heard a different caliber gun fired, which I assume is probably the Secret Service. But then I thought I heard another couple of rounds come off, but it felt like it was behind me. But it could have been the echo.
Did you hear did President Trump say anything?
No, he was just giving the typical rally speech that he typically does everywhere, you know, and trying to encourage voters to get out and vote, and talking about his plan for America.
But as the shots rang out, did he cry out? Did someone tell him to get down, or was that instinctive?
Yeah, we heard that. We heard everybody say get down, but I think he was already going down. That's when everybody thought at first maybe he had been hit more severely than he was. I mean, it's already severe. And let's face it, it hit his ear. It could have been a little bit closer. It could have been disastrous. But when he went down to the ground, then he got up. He put his fist up in the air or his hand up in the air, so we knew he was okay.
There are presumably, at least it appears to be, a lot of people in that crowd. By now you have heard that one spectator was killed and others critically wounded. Has it settled in of how close a brush everybody in that arena or setting came tonight?
Yeah, you know, there was a lot. It was interesting listening to the people as they departed the scene, and you know what was going through my mind, and of course being a little older than many of those that were there, but I was recalling the Kennedy assassinations and some of the other attempts that were made during my lifetime, and I was recalling those and thinking about those, and then moving forward to where we're at today, and we still have a problem with this. So it's shocking, but most people are pretty upset. There's no question about it.
Understandably. Ambassador, thank you so much for taking the time being with us. We're glad you and yours are safe after this tonight. Retired ATF Special Agent Jim Cavanaugh is with me. By now, as you know, we've been reporting that the shooter in this case is deceased, presumably shot by law enforcement. I think the next question will be, is this a lone operator, the proverbial lone wolf, or is this part of some kind of conspiracy? Those are two different things. How will they begin to get, at least put the dots together?
Yeah, well, let's start with the deceased shooter, Lester, and identify him, and then, you know, sweep his personal devices, phone, computer, etc., for, you know, associates, Confederates, and start interviewing around the circle around him. You've dug out a lot from the reporters and the witnesses since we last talked, and you know, it appears that maybe the shooter. It seemed like to me, watching the video closely, that the first shot or two is where the President Trump reacts.
Hey, Jim, let me just stop you for a second. I just received a new piece of information that I want to get your thoughts on. We're now, from a confirmed source, that the shooter was actually firing from outside the perimeter. That changes a lot in terms of the security posture at these things, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, but what's surprising to me is that a shooter could get in an elevated position at any kind of a Secret Service event, because the first thing that the service does is they get all the elevated positions, and they put their you know, sniper teams up there and lookouts with binoculars and rifles. So, you know, it does seem from the witnesses that this was a distant shot now, that the reason the shot wasn't as loud, it was further off in the distance. And it looked like, watching the video, Lester, closely, that when the president turned his head to the right, the first shot or second shot, the first pop or two, is when he grabs his right ear. And then he, on his own volition, goes down, squats down. No, he doesn't fall down, he just squats down. But you can see at that same moment that the spectators behind him are also hunching down as a normal reaction to gunfire. And then there's more rounds right after that. There's maybe another 5 rounds. And Dasha Burns had a witness that she just interviewed, and he talked about he counted 7 rounds. And that was close. I don't know can't tell the exact number. I have to listen to that audio very, very closely. But I mean that sort of jives with what the witness said. So it looks like we had an assassin with a rifle outside the security perimeter. That's why you had mentioned earlier, magnetometers. Well, if you never breach the security perimeter, nobody checks you. And the first shot or second might have been the one intended to kill the former president, but it grazed his right ear.
Yeah, Jim, let me bring back, if I can, Evie Pomporis, a former Secret Service agent again. Evie, thank you for staying with us. I'd like to get your reaction to the fact this person was firing from outside the perimeter. That raises a lot of questions about how these areas are secured.
That's one of the most difficult things when you do outdoor sites. So when we spoke before, when you look at it this way, when you're in a closed environment, even if it's an arena, at least you're in a closed environment. I only have to worry about what's on the inside. When you do open rallies like this, right? You're outside. You have to worry about line of sight issues. Line of sight is a massive problem. Why is it a problem? Because somebody can be out in the distance and really engage your target from a long range. And there are weapons out there that allow you to do this. So even though, let's say you hunker this whole area down, you've got the magnetometers, you've got the tactical element, everything's locked and tight, how do you secure that outer perimeter? How far do you go? And can you cover everything? That's a problem. These are probably, of all the types of advances you can do, these are probably the least favorite amongst Secret Service agents, because you have the inability. And even if somebody is in an elevated position or not, how do you secure all those elevated positions when you have weapons with the capabilities that are able to shoot long distances?
Yeah,
this is what you are up against.
Yeah, and you point about weapons that can shoot long distances. We tend to think of those as long guns, things that stand out certainly in a crowd, whether you're, no matter what side of the fence you're on. The fact that this person is at some distance was able to strike the former president, does that suggest some ability beyond the average gun user?
Well, that would be interesting to see, right? Because it's hard to speculate at this point. How far was that person? One of the things that lead me to think that this person was at a distance, when we hear the gunshot, it sounds very faint, very soft, right? It sounds like an echo. That's why so many people mistook it for fireworks. That's why a lot of people weren't sure it was a gunshot. So when you hear the shot like that, it does lead us to believe that it was at a distance. And that's why there's the confusion. I do want to say this, which is really interesting as I watch this. When you do security for these events, one of the greatest concerns are the people inside and stampede issues. And what I have to acknowledge is all these folks held steady and fast. We don't see people really losing it. We don't see people stampeding out, because it's not just the danger of the attacker, of what's going to happen. The danger a lot of times can come from within. So I really have to comment on everybody's ability to stay put, to not panic, and to allow the Secret Service, and also look at where that motorcade is. That vehicle where they exit him out, there's people all around, and you see everybody hold their position and allow the security team to evacuate.
Yeah, Evie, thank you for that. I should note, several years ago, working on a story for the Today Show, I went to the Secret Service training facility outside of Washington, and they put me through a simulation in which I was the protectee, waving to a crowd when shots ring out. And the swiftness of these agents moving around me, getting me in the car and driving off was stunning, even though I knew it was going to come. So the training is obviously something they do. They prepare for these kind of moments. I'm sure there'll be a lot of soul searching about what happened in this case, but an impressive group of folks who put their lives on the line for these protectees. on a daily basis. Evie, we'll get back to you in a few moments. I want to go back to NBC's Dasha Burns. She's outside that Trump rally. She was there when the shots rang out. We're obviously grateful. You and the rest of our team are fine, the other journalists, but we do recognize 2 spectators were hurt, 1 killed. Another in critical condition. Dasha, you have had some pretty heart-wrenching interviews today. People saw a lot of things you can't unsee.
Yeah, Lester, that's absolutely right. People who came to a Trump rally, some of them for the first time, looking forward to seeing the former president. There was music playing, people selling merchandise, people eating food, people reuniting with friends here, not expecting anything like this. Let me just set the scene for you right now. We are in the parking lot outside of the venue. Sirkin, our cameraman, is going to show you. People are kind of in a traffic jam right now. This was a one-way in, one-way out kind of road situation. This is Butler County. It's a pretty rural county. Not a lot of big highways, not a lot of big roads. So people have been, I mean, this is now hours later, and many people still waiting to get out and still waiting and processing everything that they've experienced. I want to introduce you to Tracy, who is stuck in this traffic jam right now. Tracy and Tyler, they're high school friends. They were right there. And Tracy, we've been hearing some of these stories. Can you just walk us through what you saw?
Absolutely. President Trump was up there, you know, and then within 5 minutes, we're hearing pop, 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 pop. And then everybody's on the ground. Everybody's on the floor. And it was just like, what? And we were on the ground level. We were 4 rows back from the stage. And are you coming?
We'll just follow along with you. They're moving in the car here, so we'll just
from the stage. And the people in the bleachers behind us, somebody got popped. Somebody got killed. Somebody died. Somebody got shot. Like this close to where we were. Those bullets, I pray to God for these people's families. Oh my God. But the how is this happening in our country today? And why? Why is it happening? Why?
And Tracy, you were telling me earlier, you know, you and Tyler, you know this county, you know this area. Did you ever think something like this would happen here?
Never. Absolutely never. You know, this shows you how much hate and hostility is in our world today. This is not a good thing. We need to all come together as a human race, you know. We need to help each other out.
Can you describe this area, this county, this place that you and Tyler grew up?
Yeah, Tyler?
Rural.
Rural. You know, cows, chickens. This is farmland. This is farmland here.
Butler, that's the county seat, but most of the county's private farmland. So it's people are pretty easygoing.
And Tracy, we talked about, you know, often Trump rallies, people are coming to celebrate, to see the former president. They're coming in with a pretty excited attitude. Can you walk me through what you came in with and what you're coming out with?
I came in with hope and excitement. If you have you ever been to a Trump rally?
Oh, we cover them all the time.
Well, how does it make you feel?
How does it make you feel? How are you feeling?
It makes me feel absolutely great and wonderful. You know, in my heart, I feel that this man really wants to help our country because I really feel that. I honest to God, I do, because this country for so long seems to be going down a path that it really shouldn't be doing.
So, I mean, you came in to hear the former president speak, someone you're a fan of, and what is your state of mind now?
Not good. There's too much hate. This is too much. We can't do this as a country. We can't do this. We need to come together as a country, and God willing, we will. I don't know if you're allowed to put that stuff on, but listen, man, my kid is a 4th-year seminarian, and he prays for this country every day. My child. My kid.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you and Tyler are safe. Drive safe. We hope you get home soon. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Lester, they've got a ways to go still. There's a lot of cars piling up here. There are a few different places that people are trying to exit at this point. A bit of a free-for-all, but people have been kind and generous to one another. People letting cars in that are trying to come in, and again, just reeling from what they witnessed. Some people very much firsthand, very much. Very, very close to the tragedy that we're describing from sort of the law enforcement point of view, the high-level point of view. But at the end of the day, Lester, the people who were here on the ground, particularly those who were close to that violence, it's something they are never going to forget, and it's now associated, of course, with politics, with the state of our democracy for so many of the people that we've been talking to, Lester.
All right, Dasha, thanks. We'll continue to go to you as you get those riveting accounts from folks. NBC News campaign embed joining us on the phone now. She is in Butler, Pennsylvania, near the hospital where there is heavy law enforcement presence. NBC News has not confirmed that the former president is at that hospital, but it's 15 minutes away from where the rally took place. Jillian Frankel is there. What are you seeing?
Lester, that's right. I'm across the street from Butler Memorial Hospital. And as you mentioned, we do not yet have confirmation that this is where former President Donald Trump was taken. But there's a heavy law enforcement presence here. Media was across the street. We're shortly getting moved. The hospital is set up on a hillside, and there's law enforcement at the top of the hill looking down. There's also law enforcement at the top of the roof of the hospital itself. When I arrived, there was a helicopter circling the building, heavy police presence here, Lester. When I pulled up, I asked the officer how they were doing. He said they're hanging in there. Obviously, a terrifying scene here in Butler tonight. Lester?
Yeah, so the access road is cut off to this area?
It is. We are not allowed to go up there. The police vehicles have moved, but we're not allowed to go up the hill to the hospital itself. And media was staged across the street. They're actually sending us further away from the hospital itself momentarily. But yeah, it was completely blocked off when I arrived here, and still a heavy police presence.
All right, Jillian, thanks very much. Again, we haven't had correct me if I'm wrong from the control room, but I don't think we've had a complete description of the wound suffered by the former president. We have all seen the blood coming out from near his ear, his right ear, somebody described as a teardrop of blood, of fresh blood. It appears he might have been grazed by the bullet, but again, we haven't received a complete medical terminology description of the wound, but it does appear that he was certainly hit during all of this. He's largely under his own power, certainly being escorted down to the armored vehicle, but again, seems to be doing okay. In fact, we heard from President Biden a while ago, who said that he appears to be okay. We should note that President Biden says he will be trying to call former President Trump at some point here in the not too distant future. And there, the signal of triumph from former President Trump as he was put into that armored car and taken to, we believe, quite possibly the hospital we were just showing you a moment ago. Our investigative correspondent Tom Winter is with us. He continues to dig out fresh details. What more can you tell us, Tom?
Lester, a couple of these things coming from official statements from law enforcement, or for 3 to 4 law enforcement officials, to myself and our colleague Jonathan Dienst. We know that the FBI is now on scene and is assisting the United States Secret Service along with the U.S. Attorney's Office in their investigation into this shooting today at the Trump rally. You were just asking a question about whether we know whether or not the former president was shot directly, either grazed in the ear or in the cheek, or whether or not this was a ricochet. That's something that they're still trying to get a handle on, and whether or not a piece of glass was what may have struck him. But either way, he obviously, from the photographs, was struck in some fashion by something. The other information that we were being told, and I'm going to bring in the reporting of my colleague Kelly O'Donnell on this as well, is that this shooting happened outside the Secret Service perimeter. So for folks that have attended any sort of political rally involving either party, involving a presidential candidate or a former president, you'll notice if you go that you are wanded, or you have to go through a magnetometer, kind of like an airport-style security, if you will. That happens within the perimeter of the event. In leading up to the event, the U.S. Secret Service goes through the event site itself to make sure that there's nothing nefarious stored inside, that nobody's hiding out and waiting for a rally to begin. And they try to establish a perimeter that would allow them to be able to have a real control over the event. So what we're being told is that this shooting happened outside of that secure perimeter from a high point. Specifically where it is, I can't yet tell you. We're waiting to hear about that, but that's some of the information that we're waiting to get on. As far as what you're looking at on screen at the moments that this happened, this is standard protocol. You're looking at the heavy weapons teams that immediately went up on stage. Then you're looking at the Secret Service close protective detail of former President Trump, and this would be very similar at any event involving a former president, that they immediately surround him. Obviously, the Secret Service agents there are putting their lives into their hands if this individual was going to continue to fire. Speaking of the individual that law enforcement believes is deceased, that individual, the alleged shooter rather, is deceased, as I mentioned. That individual may have been shot by law enforcement. That appears to be coming into clarity at this time. We're still waiting on the specific details of that, whether or not that was a counter sniper team or somebody who was close to him. I suspect we'll get more details on that closely. As far as who did this and what their motivations are, there's some background information coming into view, Lester, but as you can imagine, there are a lot of names on social media at this hour. There are a lot of names that have been mentioned to us, and we're really trying to get a lot more clarity on that before we suggest a possible name of the individual who did this. But at this point, there appears to be no ongoing threat, and there's no indication that they're looking for anybody else. But this is now a full-blown federal criminal investigation, as you can imagine, and they will certainly try to determine whether this individual had any help. Not that we've received any indication of that, but that's obviously something that they will look into. And the type of rifle that could be used, as you would imagine, to fire from outside the perimeter to get close to that stage would be some sort of a high-powered rifle. The specific nature of that is, again, details that we're still waiting to get, Lester.
All right, Tom, thanks very much. Let me go to Kristen Welker now in our Washington, D.C. bureau, who has more. Kristen?
Well, Lester, just to reset for everyone, we are tracking the ongoing investigation that Tom was just talking about in the wake of former President Trump having been rushed off the stage after shots were fired at the Pennsylvania rally where he was speaking. To set the scene for everyone, the day started with the anticipation, the questions swirling about whether this might be the event where he announced his nominee for vice president. Obviously now the mood, the tone, the focus has shifted to this horrific act of political violence that unfolded at this Pennsylvania rally. President Biden did address the nation just a short time ago, saying this is unheard of. Everybody must condemn it. He said he had tried to speak with the former president, had not been able to, but is continuing those attempts. He's also getting briefed. I want to go to our senior White House correspondent, Kelly O'Donnell, who is following all of this along with us. Kelly, what's the latest there?
Well, from the Biden White House perspective, this is a moment for trying to get information to the president. He, of course, is in charge of the Department of Justice and the Secret Service that are, of course, the agencies that will be working on this. There is always a careful separation between the executive and the law enforcement capabilities, but that's why the Biden White House has a critical role to play to provide the resources at the federal level to investigate this. The president indicated that he also recognizes that state and local officials are very much involved with this right now. Part of what will be a question going forward is what is the immediate change, if any, to the political calendar that is scheduled for this week, with the Republican National Convention expected to be in Milwaukee with lots of important events. Obviously, a full assessment of what is the condition of the former president right now. We don't have confirmed reporting yet about the state of that. When he left this event site, as the video indicates, of course, he was taken and has the resources around him for medical care. President Biden has said he wishes to speak to Donald Trump tonight. That can happen whenever the two are able to connect. That is not necessarily a vital piece in terms of next steps, but it is the kind of gesture and important connection that actually does send a message right now that this is not about the politics of the moment and that there are bigger issues here, with the current president and several former presidents talking about no room for political violence. We're hearing that from many elected officials on Capitol Hill as well. And right now, we're in a period of a few different streams of information. What is the investigation producing? What is known about the shooter involved? The extent to which this was some kind of an organized attempt? Were there others involved? All of those questions need to be sorted out. Then there's the political fallout. There is typically a quieting period after an unexpected event. Normally in campaigns, that would be something far less graphic than this. It might be the death of a loved one in a campaign. It might be a car accident. We've seen all those iterations before, and there's typically a quieting period where both campaigns turn down the volume. Everyone catches their breath before the rigor of a campaign resumes again. So this is a critical evening to gather facts, to get a sense of the scope of this, for direct communication between President Biden as a person and former President Donald Trump as a person, and not so much as candidates or in their office and former office. That's part of what's playing out here. Now, the president indicated he would speak again or communicate again if there were further developments, and there are questions to be identified about what next steps there should be and are all the resources there. Even a question about where does former President Trump go in the immediate hours ahead. He, of course, was on the road as a candidate in Pennsylvania. What is the immediate plan for his next steps? Presidents and former presidents have not only a lot of security around them, but often their homes have additional security as well. So finding a way to safely transport him, making certain of his medical situation, and then the necessary communication between the White House and the former president. Those are the things we're watching. Kristen?
Kelly O'Donnell at the White House for us. Kelly, thank you. And as you have been speaking, Kelly, we are watching these chilling, horrifying images of the former president rushed off the stage, bloodied, defiant, that traditional fist pump that Donald Trump is known for as he is whisked away to get medical care. Lester Holt is back with us. Lester.
Kristen Welker, thank you. NBC's Dasha Burns is just outside that Trump rally. She was there when the shots rang out, and she is now in a sea of traffic of people still trying to leave that area, many with some pretty horrific stories to tell. Dasha?
Yeah, Lester, that's exactly right. We've been talking to people who are stuck in this traffic jam and are processing what they just witnessed. I want you to hear now from, remind me your name, ma'am?
Vanessa Asher.
Vanessa Asher. Vanessa, you were very close to the former president when this happened. Can you describe to me where you were and what you saw?
We were 6 rows back, right in front of his podium, straight back. And he was talking about his chart on this side. And he was looking directly at his chart. And when he went over to this one, that's when he was grazed here. He was shot. And if he would not have looked at his other chart, it probably would have got him in the head.
So he turned his head just in the nick of time?
Yes, he did. In the nick of time.
And Lester, let me just explain to you, and I want to follow up with you more, Vanessa, but this is what we were talking about earlier. I'll send it back to you, Lester.
I apologize. Things are moving quickly here. We're apparently hearing from the former president himself. Hallie Jackson has it. Hallie?
It is a new post on his online platform, Truth Social, Lester, in which the former president says, and I will read this in full, because obviously this is the first time that we are now hearing from the former president himself since this incident at his rally in Butler. He says, I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all of law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, the former president continues, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed, and also to the family of another person person that was badly injured. He goes on to say, it is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. He also adds, nothing is known at this time about the shooter who is now dead. The former president says he was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. You're looking at that online post now. So he is confirming, he says that he was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of his right ear. He says, I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. And he ends this post by saying, God bless America. So, Lester, some significant questions that are being answered now from the former president here as to what happened, as to how he's doing, as to his state of mind. And again, significant in that he is describing in rather vivid detail the moment when he says that bullet went through his ear. He heard the whizzing sound. You're seeing some of these images now, including some that are being circulated by his allies with the former president, his fist raised in the air. He said he felt the bullet ripping through the skin with a lot of bleeding taking place. What we don't know now is where the former president, is headed next. We understand that he is obviously getting treated at that local medical facility. We know from his son, and I will tell you from other sources that I've spoken with, that he appears to be in good spirits. That is what folks are being told, and that his son, who has spoken with him directly, says. And you see the former president able to, obviously, in these videos, this image we've been showing, able to move, able to pump his fist, but you see the blood that he's talking about there on his right ear as the former president is describing what happened. Important to note here, he is also, of course, extending condolences to the person who was hurt, the person who was believed to be killed there, and thanking law enforcement for their incredibly fast response. And you saw the response, Lester, in one of these remarkable moments as it unfolded in some quarters, in